Hello, and welcome to the third video in our series. In the last two videos, we looked at the various ways in which the mind affects the body, and the things that we focus on change the activities in our bodies, and that includes the mental processes in the brain. We talked about brain waves. We talked about the autonomic nervous system and how the thought and the body are connected, and as we have troublesome or repetitive thoughts that aren't useful, our body is affected by pretty much everything we think about. So the ability to be aware of what's going on in our mind is the best way to assist the body in an ability for a deep relaxation or meditation. Everything is totally connected, cannot be unconnected, and so we go further along this path to look at some other ways that we're affected by our mind. Today I want to talk about one that's a little bit more complex, yet is such a big part of what happens in our system, and that's anger. And we notice, especially in this time where people are having to be more careful about their environment and also mindful of how we're affected by others in our environment, and how we kind of quickly anger to situations that feel somewhat threatening. And of course, that feeling of anger prepares us for flight or fight, which is one of the autonomic nervous system functions. And yet when we get angry, there are very few occasions where we can do either of those two things. Sometimes we can raise our voices, sometimes we can say things that come out of that anger and have a short relief or release, but more often than not, we don't have an ability to release the anger. We hear about people who are talking about, those who are compliant to the social distancing and the isolation and the masks and this sort of thing, and because we're in a situation where this is quite threatening for us, anger arises. And that's not the only thing, of course, and there are lots of occasions and situations where anger is an appropriate response, but we're not going to talk about those so much today. So when we have an anger response, we're often in the mental piece of that before we recognize what's happened in our body. And when we slow that kind of inquiry down a little bit and go into some situations where anger is a response, we realize that something happened in our body as well. We had a perception of some threat or some danger or something that doesn't agree with the way we think the world should be operating, or that we think the way people should be acting or reacting. And that response to whatever our reaction is to an individual or a situation, the second that happens in the mind, it begins to happen in the body, because the body is preparing for a reaction. And when that reaction is held back, where we can't say anything, we can't do anything, or we choose not to, that energy remains in the body and is easily reactivated on the next situation and the next, because there has been no release either at a mental or a physical level. So there's a buildup of that kind of anger. And when we're in these stressful situations and somewhat kind of threatening times, anger is building up, and it's important to recognize it, and then secondly, it is important to find a release for it. And of course, I tie all of this into meditation. I'm not a psychologist. I don't I don't pretend to know how anger is first recognized and dealt with, and what's a better way to deal with it, and what we should have said and what we didn't say and could have said. My focus is on what can we do in the body to recognize and to manage anger. Because the reaction, of course, is so dramatic in some instances, where sometimes we're just a little bit mad, and sometimes we're just really mad, and sometimes we just want to beat somebody up, or sometimes we want to yell. Those are the ones that I'm kind of focusing on today, because it builds and it creates a lot of disruption in the body. And often we just blame somebody because we think, well, if you hadn't said that, if you didn't do that, if you hadn't gone there or not gone there. But what we have to remember with the deepest ability that we can is that the anger happens in us. And that person that we're so angry at, or those people that we're so angry at, are just wandering off doing their own thing and quite happily enjoying their lives, and we're left with this residual gunk and anger that we have not been able to resolve. So let's go to the practical. I would like you to think of a time, most recent if you can, not some of the oldest things that bring up anger, because that's a slightly different discussion. But think about something in the last week or so that had really, raised your shackles, that made you feel uncomfortable, that you felt out of control, and you got angry. You wanted somebody or something to be different, and you may have reacted in a way that you weren't really happy with, or that you felt left things unresolved. And let's take a look at what happens when we have those responses. So just for a moment or two, close your eyes and bring to mind a situation, an event, or a conversation that made you angry. And as you're thinking about it, I want you to go into your body, stay out of the situation that did that, go into your body and feel what's happening as you recall that situation. So let's just do that. Just close your eyes and I'll watch the time. And as you bring to mind that event or that individual or that situation, start to feel the feelings and just go in there for a minute or two and see what's going on. And as you go into that memory, be aware that some of the reactions that you had at the time are being activated. Whether it's a feeling of tightness, a feeling of something in the pit of your stomach that's arising, possibly some tightness in your throat. Just have a look. Okay, gently open your eyes. And I think that one of the things that you probably were aware of is that as you brought the memory up and activated it, so did you activate some of the residual feelings or thoughts that were a part of the original reaction or experience. And that tells us something really important about what's going on as we remember those things. And we can play those things over 10 or 15 times in a day, thinking of the things that we should have said, what we might have done, how we should have reacted differently, and why did they do that. And it can get into quite a reminiscence. But what we become aware of is those reactions are still very active and alive in our bodies. And that each time we recall a situation and activate, it may not feel as severe or as present, but it will activate something. So what happens is that as those feelings and reactions remain unprocessed in our body, they build. And I think you might agree that when something similar happens, you're not less angry and kind of, well, I'm used to that. You add a little bit to the pot. That's my experience. Things don't change. We haven't changed the way we reacted, so when we see something similar, our reactions are quite similar, and the boiling point from the last event is here, and so we're very quick to get to that boiling point and then raise the bar a little bit, so it's a bit sometimes a bit more of a reaction. And wherever it was that you felt those reactions and feelings in your body is basically where they're sitting. They can affect our blood pressure. They can affect our breath and the way we take in a solid, deep breath. They can affect the level of tension in our bodies. It's just sitting there somewhere, feeling tense and holding into that fight response at a time when we're not even thinking about it because it's now situated in the body. So of course the next and most important thing is, what do we do with that? And when we talked about the resistant thoughts that we had and have, or the clinging thoughts that we talked about in the last video, we were looking at a process of removing those memories and the associated thoughts and feelings so that it could pass through our body. And we can do that exact same thing with anger. It's just a little bit more of a challenge because we often don't want to let go. And we don't want to let go because it helps to make us feel right about what we were angry about. And that somehow being right is going to, improve a situation, make it easier, or create a little bit of satisfaction. And all of those feelings are appropriate to a point, but not when that energy is still residing in our body and affecting our well-being and our body's natural ability to heal, the natural ability of our immune system to be more effective and more efficient, and also the strain on our neurological system because of the tension and the rise and fall of the feelings in the body and the tension. So let's see how that can work for us. So I want you to once again close your eyes and to return to that memory where there was anger, where you couldn't really express the anger, so you kind of had to tighten up the fists and pull in and pull back, knuckle up. let's go back to that memory. And as we do, I want you to locate it in your body, whether it's in one place or whether it's in more than one place, and I want you to feel it rise. Feel where it goes, and then I want you to let it relax and dissipate. And we're going to do that twice so that you can first feel the sense of space around whatever's happening in your body, and then watch it dissipate. Okay, so close your eyes. Go back into the memory that you brought up in your first exercise. And locate in the body where those feelings are arising. As you feel the anger, remember the situation, remember how mad you were, and feel the feelings because they're there. And let them rise. And as they rise, I want you to imagine that you've created a space around those feelings or that feeling so that it can begin to loosen. And it might be just a small space, it's all you need. And as you're creating a space around those feelings or that feeling, now begin to watch it dissipate as though it were a cloud disappearing in the sky. And as you're watching it dissipate, see if there is any place in your body where you're feeling a little bit of relaxation. What I notice if I do this exercise is that my shoulders feel a little more relaxed. My legs feel a little more relaxed. Just check where it's noticeable for you. Okay, now I want you to return to that memory where you were angry. Recall the circumstance. Recall, if you can, a little bit of what you were thinking and what you wanted to do. And now return to that place in the body where the feelings arise. They'll still be there, but they might be less. And now, as before, create a space around that area where there is energy building, where you can feel the relaxing, or rather the reaction in your body. Create a bit of space around it so it can loosen. And as that occurs, let it dissipate. It gets thinner, moves out, the way that a cloud changes when you're watching it in the sky. And let it move out. And once again, bring your awareness back into your body. Is there any place that feels more relaxed? A little bit softer? Just feel that for a minute. And as you do, remind yourself that you're removing the residual energy that is creating distress for you. It's bringing your body back to a better equilibrium, to a more natural healing state. And of course, to a greater peace of mind. And gently open your eyes. This is an exercise that is so easy to do and so important. As we're surrounded by perhaps people or situations that we find frustrating, especially now when things are changing so dramatically and every day something new, we need those tools that allow us to bring our present awareness back to the body and know that we can do this exercise, and that just because it's energy and we can't see it, it's quite a powerful force in our well-being. So I urge you to take time each day, if you're finding things that are upsetting you, to do this exercise, and also to remind yourself that whatever the situation was that created it, however wrong it might have been, or unfair or frustrating, the only thing that matters is the reaction in you and how you manage it. That's the healing part. Thank you again for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.